The Silent Guardian. The Andromeda sector burned. Captain Lyra Voss stood at her command station aboard the Centaurian vessel, Starweaver, watching as energy weapons carved brilliant paths through the void. The battle for control of the Nexus Gateway had raged for 3 standard weeks, with neither the Centaurian defense fleet nor the Hegemony Armada willing to yield. The Gateway's strategic value made it worth any price in ships or lives, at least according to High Command. Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace, Captain, Lieutenant Riven called out, his crystalline appendages flickering with alarm patterns. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. Lyra's secondary eyes focused on the tactical display while her primary set remained fixed on the battle beyond the reinforced viewport. Classification? Unknown, but... Riven's voice trailed off as the ship sensors tracked the new arrivals. By the first light. The words died in Lyra's throat as she witnessed it. A vessel was materializing between the warring fleets, but "vessel" seemed an inadequate term. It was a leviathan of metal and energy, easily dwarfing the largest capital ships of either fleet. Its hull gleamed with an impossible sheen, as though crafted from a single piece of star-forged metal. Incoming transmission, Communications Officer Dara announced, her tentacles writhing with nervous energy. It's broadcasting on all frequencies, using protocols I've only read about in historical archives. The message that filled the bridge's speakers was simple yet carried the weight of centuries: this is the human spaceship Eternal Vigil. Stand down. The effect was immediate. Across the battlefield, weapons powered down as ancient recognition codes activated in every ship's computer. Lyra watched in amazement as both Centaurian and Hegemony vessels automatically assumed defensive positions, their crew likely as stunned as her own. Humans. The legendary Guardians who had vanished centuries ago after the Nexus War, leaving behind only stories and a handful of automated outposts. Their return now, at this precise moment, couldn't be coincidence. Captain, Riven's voice wavered, I'm detecting energy readings from their primary weapons array. The output, it's greater than our entire fleet combined. Lyra straightened her uniform, a gesture she'd learned from historical records of human military customs. Open a channel to the Eternal Vigil. Channel open. This is Captain Lyra Voss of the Centaurian Defense Fleet. We acknowledge your presence and stand ready to... She paused, uncertain of the proper protocol for addressing a living legend. The response came not in words but in actions. The massive human warship began to move with impossible grace for its size, positioning itself directly between the two fleets. As it did so, smaller craft emerged from its hangar bays, vessels that seemed to bend reality around them as they moved. Additional transmission incoming, Dara announced. Text only. The message that appeared on Lyra's command console was longer this time. The Nexus Gateway remains under human protection as per the Terminus Accords of 2789. Any attempt to seize control will be met with immediate response. Prepare to receive diplomatic envoys. Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she authorized the reception of the human representatives. In all her years of service, she'd never expected to encounter anything more than echoes of humanity's legacy. Now, standing on her bridge as history literally unfolded before her, she couldn't help but wonder what chain of events had brought them back. The Eternal Vigil's presence raised more questions than answers. Why return now? What had they been doing in their centuries of absence? And most importantly, what did they know about the Nexus Gateway that made them break their long silence? As she watched the human shuttle approach, Lyra realized that the battle for the Gateway had been merely a prelude. Whatever was coming would reshape the galaxy once again, just as humanity had done centuries before. Prepare honor guard protocols, she ordered, straightening her posture. And someone find me every scrap of information we have about human diplomatic procedures. We're about to make history. Echoes of the past. Commander Marcus Blackwood stood at the helm of the Eternal Vigil's primary observation deck, his weathered features reflected in the reinforced crystal viewport. Below him, delegates from both the Centaurian Defense Fleet and the Hegemony assembled in the ship's diplomatic quarter, their movements tracked by security systems beyond their comprehension. "Archival search complete, Commander," announced Arya, the ship's quantum AI. Displaying historical context for the current conflict. The air around him shimmered as holographic data streams materialized, showing the complete history of disputes over the Nexus Gateway. But Marcus wasn't interested in recent history. His thoughts drifted to the Nexus War, the catastrophic conflict that had forced humanity to reveal the true extent of their technological advancement. "Show me the final battle," he ordered softly. The observation deck transformed into a perfect recreation of events from 3 centuries ago. The Eternal Vigil had been there too, younger then, its hull unmarked by the strange patterns that now adorned it. The enemy they'd faced defied description, beings from another dimension that had sought to convert our universe into something more suitable for their existence. Humanity had known about them for millennia, preparing in secret while presenting a facade of being just another spacefaring race. The network of Nexus gateways, supposedly ancient artifacts that predated all known civilizations, had actually been humanity's creation, early warning systems disguised as valuable transportation networks. Multiple diplomatic infractions detected in the conference room, Arya reported, interrupting Marcus's reminiscence. The Hegemony representative is attempting to access restricted databases through their neural interface. Marcus smiled grimly. Let them try. They still think we're using quantum encryption. They haven't figured out that we've moved well beyond that. He turned away from the historical display, his long coat swishing softly against the deck. The Eternal Vigil had been his home for 50 subjective years, though centuries had passed in normal space. The temporal manipulation systems that allowed the ship to serve as humanity's eternal guardian also meant its crew experienced time differently from the rest of the galaxy. "Commander," a new voice called out. Lieutenant Dharma Patel emerged from the lift, her dark skin contrasting sharply with the white of her dress uniform. "We've detected unusual activity in the Gateway's subspace matrix. It matches patterns from before the Nexus War." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "Show me." The holographic display shifted, showing the massive structure of the Nexus Gateway. To the untrained eye, it appeared normal, a massive ring of seemingly ancient metal floating in space. But Marcus could see the subtle distortions in the quantum field surrounding it, ripples in reality that shouldn't exist. "Have they figured it out yet?" he asked, knowing Dharma would understand the question. "No, sir. Both the Centaurians and the Hegemony still believe they're fighting over a transportation hub. They don't realize the gateway is actually a seal, containing something that should never be allowed to break free." Marcus moved to his command station, activating deeper layers of ship systems that had remained dormant for centuries. "Signal the diplomatic team. Tell them to wrap it up. We need to begin the purge protocol before." The ship's alert system suddenly blared to life, its tone indicating a level 1 reality breach. On the main display, the gateway's quantum field began to fluctuate wildly. "Multiple dimensional fractures detected," Arya announced, her usual calm voice carrying an edge of urgency. "The seal is failing. Estimated time to complete breach, 6 hours. Sound general quarters," Marcus ordered, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "And get me a secure channel to Earth. It's time to wake the rest of the fleet." As klaxons began to sound throughout the massive vessel, Marcus watched the gathered alien ships through the viewport. They had no idea that their petty conflict had weakened the dimensional barriers enough to threaten everything they held dear. Now, humanity would have to reveal even more of their capabilities to save them, again. "Dharma, begin evacuating all non-essential personnel from the neighboring systems. And prepare the Prometheus Protocol. If we can't contain this breach." He left the sentence unfinished. "Understood, sir." Dharma hesitated before adding, do you think they're ready to learn the truth? About us? About what's really out there? Marcus watched as the first signs of dimensional instability became visible to the naked eye, subtle distortions in space that reminded him too much of the horrors he'd witnessed centuries ago. They don't have a choice anymore. None of us do. Worlds collide. Captain Lyra Voss had seen many impossible things in her career, but watching a human warship reconfigure itself in real time surpassed them all. The Eternal Vigil's hull shifted like liquid metal, weapon systems emerging from previously invisible seams as the massive vessel positioned itself near the increasingly unstable gateway. "They're requesting that we maintain a minimum safe distance of 3 light minutes," Lieutenant Riven reported, his crystalline form pulsing with anxiety patterns. "The Hegemony fleet is already complying." Of course they were. The Hegemony, for all their aggression, weren't fools. They'd seen the same historical records as everyone else, the fragments of footage from the Nexus War that showed human ships fighting creatures that defied the laws of physics. "Captain," Commander Marcus Blackwood's hologram materialized on her bridge, his expression grave. "We need your fleet's assistance. Your crystalline matrix drives are compatible with our containment protocols." Lyra's secondary eyes widened. "You've been monitoring our technological development?" "We never left," Marcus replied simply. "Humanity has maintained watch over every species in the galaxy. We had to ensure none of you would accidentally trigger what's happening now." The implications of that statement sent chills through Lyra's spine. How much of their civilization's development had been subtly guided by unseen human hands? A violent tremor shook the Star Weaver as another dimensional ripple emerged from the gateway. Through the viewport, Lyra watched in horror as space itself seemed to tear, revealing glimpses of something that her mind refused to properly process. "What we're about to show you will change everything you think you know about the universe," Marcus continued. "Are you prepared for that?" Before Lyra could respond, her ship's quantum communications array activated autonomously. Data streamed directly into the Starweaver's systems, information that had been hidden in their computers all along, waiting for this moment. "By the first light," Riven whispered as the data resolved into clear images. "They've been inside our systems since we first achieved space flight." The historical records unfolded before the stunned crew. They watched as humanity, far more advanced than they'd ever revealed, had detected the first interdimensional incursion thousands of years ago. The Nexus gateways weren't transportation devices, they were weapons, designed to seal breaches in reality. "Your species and others were developing too quickly," Marcus explained as the records played. "You were approaching the level of technology that had attracted them in the first place. We couldn't stop your advancement, but we could prepare you." Another hologram appeared, showing the true form of the Eternal Vigil. The ship wasn't just a warship, it was a mobile reality anchor, designed to reinforce the barriers between dimensions. The strange patterns on its hull were actually mathematical equations written in exotic matter, constantly calculating and adjusting to maintain universal stability. "The Hegemony's attempt to seize control of the gateway, combined with your fleet's defensive measures, created a resonance pattern," Marcus continued. "It's weakening the seals we placed here centuries ago." Lyra watched as more human ships began emerging from what she had previously thought was empty space. They had been there all along, cloaked not just from vision but from reality itself. "We need your help," Marcus said, his hologram flickering as another dimensional tremor passed through the system. "Your ship's crystalline matrices can be synchronized with our containment field. Without that synchronization, we won't be able to restore the seal before they break through." "They?" Lyra asked, though part of her already knew the answer. The main view screen shifted, showing what lay beyond the growing tears in space. Creatures of impossible geometry writhed in the void, their very existence an affront to the laws of physics. They were the reason humanity had built the gateways, the reason they had hidden their true capabilities from the galaxy. "Make your decision quickly, Captain," Marcus urged as the tears in reality grew larger. We have less than 4 hours before the barrier fails completely. Either we work together, or everything you know ceases to exist. Lyra looked at her crew, seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their expressions. They had trained all their lives to defend their civilization, never knowing that humanity had been silently defending them from something far worse. "Send us the synchronization protocols," she said firmly. "The Centaurian defense fleet stands ready." As her ships began moving into formation alongside the human vessels, Lyra couldn't help but wonder what other secrets humanity had been keeping. But those questions would have to wait. Right now, survival took precedence over curiosity. The battle for reality itself was about to begin. Reality screamed. There was no other way to describe the sound that reverberated through every ship in the combined fleet as the dimensional barrier continued to deteriorate. Even the most hardened veterans found themselves fighting back primal terror as space itself seemed to fold and unfold in impossible ways. Commander Marcus Blackwood's voice cut through the chaos, broadcasting to all ships, "Initialize synchronization protocols now. Centaurian vessels, form up on our port and starboard flanks. Hegemony ships, maintain the rear guard. Do not, under any circumstances, look directly into the void rifts." Captain Lyra Voss guided the Star Weaver into position alongside the Eternal Vigil, watching in amazement as her ship's crystalline matrix began resonating with the human vessel's exotic matter hull. Energy patterns she had never seen before danced across her sensors. "Multiple breaches detected," Arya announced across all channels. Class 5 entities emerging. Through the gaps in space came horrors that defied description, beings of pure mathematics and wrong angles, their very presence causing local physics to break down. Some seemed to exist in more dimensions than space allowed, while others appeared to be holes in reality shaped like creatures. "By all that's sacred," Lyra whispered as her sensors tried and failed to properly categorize what they were seeing. "How did humanity face these things alone?" "We didn't face them alone," Marcus responded, his hologram appearing on her bridge. "We had help from the first time we encountered them. Help from ourselves." Before Lyra could process that cryptic statement, the Eternal Vigil began to change. Its hull, already seemingly fluid, transformed completely. The mathematical equations written in exotic matter began to glow with an inner light that hurt to look at, and weapon systems unlike anything Lyra had ever seen emerged from dimensional pockets. "All ships, commence Operation Time Weave," Marcus commanded. "Initialize temporal anchors and prepare for relative spacetime distortion." The human fleet moved with impossible precision, their ships creating patterns in space that seemed to stabilize reality itself. The Centaurian and Hegemony vessels found themselves caught in the geometry of the formation, their own technologies synchronizing with systems they couldn't begin to understand. "What you're about to witness," Marcus explained as the formation took shape, "is why humanity chose to hide our true capabilities. The power to manipulate spacetime itself comes with a terrible price." The Eternal Vigil's main weapon system activated, but instead of firing energy or matter, it began drawing lines of pure causality through space. The interdimensional entities recoiled as reality itself was reinforced around them. "Multiple temporal convergence points detected," Arya reported. "Quantum probability collapse imminent." Lyra watched in awe as multiple versions of the human fleet seemed to phase into existence, identical ships occupying the same space at different points in time, all acting in perfect coordination. The Eternal Vigil itself appeared to exist in several temporal states simultaneously, its weapons firing across multiple timelines at once. "This is impossible," her science officer muttered. "They're breaking every known law of physics." "No," Marcus corrected, "we're enforcing them. The entities you see are the ones breaking the laws of physics. We're the universe's immune system, ensuring those laws remain intact." The battle that followed defied conventional description. The human ships fought across both space and time, their weapons not so much destroying the interdimensional entities as rewriting the local laws of physics to make their existence impossible. The Centaurian and Hegemony vessels found themselves acting as anchor points, their technologies helping to stabilize a normal spacetime around the conflict. But the entities fought back with equal impossibility. Ships disappeared from existence as their histories were erased. Others aged thousands of years in seconds. Reality buckled and warped around the battlefield as fundamental forces were turned into weapons. Primary containment is failing, Arya announced. Timeline corruption at 30% and rising. Marcus's expression grew grim. We need to initiate the Prometheus Protocol. All ships, prepare for temporal recursion. What does that mean? Lyra demanded as her ship's systems began responding to commands she hadn't given. It means, Marcus replied softly, that we're about to show you why humanity really disappeared from the galaxy. And why we always come back when we're needed most. The Eternal Vigil's hull began to glow with an impossible light as energy readings went beyond anything Lyra's instruments could measure. Around them, space itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting for what would come next. Legacy of the Stars. The Prometheus Protocol wasn't just a weapon, it was a fundamental rewriting of local spacetime, and Lyra Voss watched in awe as it unfolded around her ship. The Eternal Vigil had become a nexus of impossible energies, its hull now transparent enough to reveal the intricate machinery within, technology that seemed to extend into dimensions she couldn't perceive. What you're about to witness, Marcus's voice echoed across all frequencies, is humanity's greatest secret. The reason we built the gateways. The reason we patrol time itself. The human fleet began to move in perfect synchronization, their ships forming patterns that seemed to resonate with the fabric of reality. But it was the Eternal Vigil that commanded attention, its form now more energy than matter, pulsing with power that made Lyra's sensors overload and reset repeatedly. We discovered something terrible about the universe, Marcus continued as the ship's transformation progressed. It's not the first universe. Or the last. Reality exists in cycles, and in each cycle, these entities try to break through. In each cycle, someone has to stop them. Understanding dawned on Lyra as she watched the human ships manipulate time and space with impossible precision. You're not just from Earth, she whispered. You're from different cycles of reality itself. Yes, Marcus confirmed. We are humanity from 1,000 different cycles, joined together to protect existence itself. The gateways aren't just seals, they're temporal anchors, connecting every cycle where humanity succeeded in pushing them back. The interdimensional entities seemed to sense what was coming. They launched a massive assault, reality-warping energies tearing at the fabric of spacetime. Ships from both the Centaurian and Hegemony fleets vanished from existence, their histories erased by weapons that attacked causality itself. But the human fleet held firm, their temporal technologies creating a stable bubble of spacetime around them. The Eternal Vigil began to pulse with a light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. All ships, activate quantum anchors, Marcus ordered. You'll want to hold on to something. We're about to show you why the universe remembers us, even when we make it forget. The Prometheus Protocol reached its peak. The Eternal Vigil transformed into a shape that Lyra's mind couldn't properly process, a structure that existed simultaneously across multiple timelines, its weapons drawing power from the accumulated knowledge and technology of countless cycles of human civilization. Fire. The word was simple, but its effect was beyond comprehension. The Eternal Vigil released its energy not in a beam or explosion, but in a cascading wave of pure causality. Reality itself seemed to shiver as the wave passed through space, touching each of the interdimensional entities. Lyra watched in amazement as the creatures weren't destroyed, they were simply made impossible. Spacetime reformed around them, local physics reasserting itself with such force that the entities couldn't maintain their presence in this reality. But the effect didn't stop there. The wave continued outward, and as it passed through each sector of space, Lyra saw brief glimpses of other timelines, other cycles where humanity had fought this same battle. She saw versions of Earth that had been destroyed, versions that had transcended physical form, versions that had become something beyond her comprehension. The cycle continues, Marcus explained as the wave dissipated. We'll seal the gateway again, stronger this time. Then we'll fade back into the shadows, watching and waiting for the next time we're needed. But why hide? Lyra asked. Why not share this knowledge, help us prepare? Marcus's hologram smiled sadly. Because knowledge of the cycles changes them. Every civilization must develop in its own way, face its own challenges. We can guide, protect, but never dominate. That's the price of our power, eternal vigilance, eternal solitude. As the human fleet began to fade from normal spacetime, their ships shifting into whatever dimension they called home, Lyra understood at last. Humanity wasn't just a species, they were guardians, existing outside normal time, protecting reality itself from forces that would unmake it. The eternal vigil was the last to fade, its form slowly becoming transparent. Remember this day, Marcus's voice echoed one final time. Remember that you're not alone in the dark. We're always watching, always protecting. And when the darkness comes again, we'll be there. The ship vanished, leaving behind only the sealed gateway and a profound silence. The Centaurian and Hegemony fleets, their differences now seeming petty in the face of what they'd witnessed, began to withdraw from the system. Lyra stood on her bridge, watching the stars shine in the now peaceful void. The universe felt different somehow, knowing what she knew now. Larger, more mysterious, but also safer, protected by guardians who had sacrificed their place in normal spacetime to keep reality itself intact. Plot a course home, she ordered softly, her eyes still fixed on the spot where the eternal vigil had vanished. And update our records. The galaxy's greatest mystery isn't where humanity went. It's how many times they've saved us all. As the Starweaver turned away from the gateway, Lyra could have sworn she saw a flicker of movement at the edge of her vision, a glimpse of a massive ship, watching, protecting, eternal in its vigil over space and time.